Hello, everyone. Guillaume Notuel here, host of the E-commerce Wizards podcast, where I feature leaders in e-commerce and business. Today's guest is Susan Bradley. She's the founder of Social Sales Girl Agency. They teach e-commerce store owner how to get more traffic and more sales. Today's topic will be transition from wholesale to direct-to-consumer or D2C. So some highlights from her entrepreneurship career. She had a brick-and-mortar store chain of 6 stores that was sold in 2010. And she had an e-commerce store selling 7 figures, which she sold in 2018 called Wee Squeak.com. And before we get started, we have a little shout out here to Sierra Stockman from the Boutique Workshop, who did introduce us. Otherwise, well, this podcast episode would not happen today. And that's it. Lastly, our sponsorship message. This episode is brought to you by MageMontreal. If a business wants a powerful e-commerce online store that will increase their sales or to move piled up dormant inventory to free up cash reserves, or to automate business processes to gain efficiency and reduce human processing errors, our company, MageMontreal, can do that. We've been helping e-commerce stores for over a decade. Here's the catch. We're specialized and only work on the Adobe Magento e-commerce platform. We do everything Magento. If you know someone who needs design, development, maintenance, support, or new website, email our team, support@magemontreal.com, or go to magemontreal.com. That's MAGE Montreal.com. All right. So, Susan, thank you for being here today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Can you start by telling us a little bit more about your entrepreneurship journey?
Sure. So it's a long one. I actually started my journey in 1990, where I had a manufacturing facility and we did direct sales way back in the day, kind of like Avon or Tupperware. And eventually that evolved into brick and mortar stores. And I had a small chain of stores, 6 stores for many, many years. Sold that in 1990, and I actually purchased a little company called Wee Squeak. It was one of the suppliers of my stores, and I grew that business. It was primarily a wholesale business, but we did have a small online presence. We had a small Miva site, if you can imagine, and grew that business for a few years and sold that in 2018. And so today I am still an e-commerce store owner. I have a very small e-commerce store, but what we really do at the Social Sales Girls is we teach e-commerce store owners how to grow a business that has lots of sales, that perhaps is location independent, but most importantly, it pays them well. They get a good paycheck from their business. That's important.
Okay. So which of your company did you transition from a wholesale to direct to consumer D2C?
So my shoe company, Wee Squeak, when I purchased that business, it was primarily a wholesale business. We had more than 600 wholesale accounts across North America. It was based in Texas, and we had a warehouse at that time, 15,000 square foot warehouse, and it was a very traditional wholesale model. Anyone who's been in the business would know, we have 2 seasons. We do a lot of markets across the country, shows. We take orders a couple of times a year. We would have showroom reps. And so when I purchased the business, that's where the business was. But what I soon learned after I purchased it, and I kind of knew from my own experience in brick and mortar, is that the landscape was really changing. And more people were making their purchases online, and brick and mortar stores were not able to order like they had ordered in the past. And so it was a bit of a struggle. But of course, we had a big overhead attached to our business. We had our warehouse, our employees. We shipped multiple containers over from China every year. So we had a huge investment in inventory. And so there came a time, I believe it was 2014, where I realized that our business, I think it was the first time the company's sales had been down in since it was established in 2005. And I realized that I had to make a change, or it wasn't going to be pretty. It was going to get ugly. And so in 2014, we started the long journey of trying to figure out how to transition this company into a direct consumer business.
Okay. Well, most of the people I've talked to who are in that situation that wants to sell direct, sell retail,
Yeah.
well, they're very concerned that they will alienate all of their retailer in this because they're the distributor there,
Mhm.
and that they would lose all that kind of market, and maybe then they cannot make payroll, pay their loan obligation, their inventory obligation, and all that. So, how did you proceed with the transition and manage your relationship with your 600, retailer there?
Well, sadly, I guess I have to say I felt you're exactly right. And that is always the big problem when you are a manufacturer and you have a direct consumer that you're trying to grow and wholesale accounts is that there's a lot of conflict, not only with your stores, but also with your reps, your sales reps have a problem with that. And so we were at the position where we just had to make a hard decision. And I talk about this often. I've shared this story. I was sitting there in my house near Christmas I think it was 2014. My mother came in and she was in her 70s at that time. And she told me that she had completed all her Christmas shopping online.
Oh,
And so I can remember that was like a big light bulb moment for me that if my mom, who was probably 76 at the time, had figured out how to order all her Christmas gifts online, that's why I was having a sales problem. And that's why my retailers were struggling because she decided, even though, her whole life she'd been buying in stores, she decided it was time for her to shop online. And she, saw the benefits of doing that. So I made the decision. And so at the time when we decided to do this, we actually closed our warehouse. We moved everything to 3PL, third party logistics. We had a shoe company. Wee Squeak is a children's shoe company. And so it was a struggle, there's a bit of a transition. And we went to our retailers. We sold to several majors. We sold to Target and Bon Mar, and we have a US presence, of course. And we went to our retailers and said, we're changing how we do business. Thank you for your support for all these years. But unless you're able to log into our wholesale portal and place your order online, we're not going to be able to service you. So we let go of our showroom reps. We did not. I still remember the last trade show that I attended, September 2014. And we just went ahead and said, this is how do I reduce our overhead? How do we systemize our business? How do we make it scalable? How do we reduce our commitment to inventory? And how do we put all our effort into scaling this direct to consumer business? And if we can keep some wholesale business, we will. But we can't be serving two masters and have all that conflict all the time. We have to make a decision and go full force on direct to consumer. And that's what we did. So we basically kissed goodbye $1 million worth of sales.
wow. Okay. But then you say, yeah, that million was not necessarily that profitable on the
Right?
margin. And you're saying this is not scalable because I need so much overhead and so on, and the profit's just
And
not there.
inventory. Yeah.
So then you say, okay, it's a hard decision, so letting go of a million, but you say this is what's holding me back. And you are betting that you'll get not only a million, but more and more scalability by going the other way here,
Yeah.
direct to consumer.
Yeah. And there were a few hard lessons to learn along the way, but I was pretty much convinced that there was a more profitability too for us. And so when I think about the lessons, I don't know whether people who are listening might be interested, but anyone who understands this business model will understand what the challenges were. And so the first challenge was inventory. That when you are a wholesale business or you're a brick and mortar retailer, when people come into your store, they need to see a wide variety of products. Like they need to open the door and kind of go, wow, look at all this selection I have. And so my very first year when I focused on direct to consumer, I can remember the orders that I placed for the styles that we were going to run. And I had, one style and I might have it in 5 different colors and all the sizes. And I put my inventory selection in a way, like I organized it in a way that I would have done for a trade show or a showroom. And what I learned really quickly is that's not how e-commerce works. And so if you sell brown shoes and black shoes mostly, but you need pink shoes and red shoes and blue shoes to make that brick and mortar customer think that there's a good selection, you don't have to do that online. You just have to have a lot of brown shoes and black shoes, and your sales are going to grow because you have exactly what people want. When we think about how people shop a store, they usually go around the store and then come back to the things that interest them. But in e-commerce, if you look average, at least the people that we work with, and my experience with my sites is that the average is maybe 4 to 5 pages that they look at, and they stay maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Really different than a physical store experience. And so that was the first mistake I made when I did this. Is I went broad and shallow, and what I needed to do is go narrow and deep. So if anyone's thinking about that, that's a big thing. The second mistake I made is not understanding how much traffic you need to get sales, like really how conversion works in e-commerce. And so when you have brick and mortar stores, which I had for many years, what happens is when people come to you, particularly if you're not in a mall, when they come to you, you're a destination, your chances of getting a sale are pretty high. But of course, we all know in e-commerce, it's a total numbers game. Once you have proof of concept, you you really just have to scale those numbers. And so that's the other pitfall for manufacturers who are wanting to go direct to consumer is they need to understand how conversion works and realize that their one job is to wake up every morning, finding their customer, giving them the right message, and growing the traffic to their site. And I didn't know that, but I learned quickly.
And which of those tactics did you put in place at first to say, okay, now I've just got by $1 million. I need to grow my internet traffic. What did you do?
So back then, that was several years ago in 2014, social media was certainly you got a lot more free reach and free traffic from social media than you do now. But honestly, there were two things that I focused on when we did this. And we were a very small team. We had our 3PL, I had a social media person, and I had a tech person, like someone who we were on Shopify. Sorry, but we were on Shopify. And so that was our team basically. We didn't have a lot of people. And so what I realized quickly was that I needed to learn how to get paid traffic to supplement my free traffic that I was getting from social media. We worked hard on that, and we learned how to run ads on Facebook and later Instagram, and did very well with that. But the other thing that I had known from my years as a brick and mortar retailer is that if I could get people on a mailing list, a physical mailing list, I could control my traffic and my sales by doing that. I could get them to come into the store for with an offer, give them a reason to come into the store. And so that very first year, I decided I was going to learn, and it was very hard. I still remember naming an ad, "Please work." I was so frustrated, but learned myself how to get paid traffic so I could control my traffic. And the other thing I did is I basically woke up every morning trying to figure out how I would grow my email list. And that really paid off. In the first year, I think we grew our list to 18,000 people, and we were on our way. And
Wow,
so
that's a very nice growth in 1 year.
yeah,
How did you grow that list to 18K?
well, let's say it was easier back then. We'll say that. It was
Okay.
easier to get people to give away their email list. But even still, like in 2022, with our members and even with my own business, my one thing is owning my lists. Is, whether it's SMS or email or both, you really need to own those lists. And so a lot of the things that we will do, launch activities like product launches, or maybe a collaboration, or even just what we call the perfect giveaway. We will do a lot of activities that are the success for those activities is to grow your email list.
Nice.
Because even though email is not free, it's so affordable and it's something that you can control. One of the things that I think that e-commerce store owners, independents for sure, don't understand really how much control they have over their sales. once they have proof of concept, it's really yours to win or lose.
By using your list and then having either collaboration with other companies that maybe you have a joint offer or you have a perfect giveaway or offer
Yeah.
discount of
Or you just control your traffic. Like, don't sit there wallowing in self-pity if you're only getting 2,000 web visitors a month. If you have good conversion rates at 2,000 web visitors a month, you just need to drive more traffic and warm those people up. Like, people don't often buy on the first visit. If anyone who uses Google Analytics can see very quickly that if you look at first time visitors and the time they spend on your site and the number of pages they look at and the conversion rate of that cohort, and then you compare that to multiple session visitors, it's like night and day. Like, I almost never see a, a Google Analytics account for one of our stores that would have a first time visitor conversion rate that is higher than returning visitors. What I see traditionally is that returning visitors, multi session visitors, convert at 2 to 3 times the rate. So, if a first time visitor cohort converts at 0.5%, it's not unusual for returning visitors to convert at 2.5%. And so when you're sitting there wondering why you don't have the sales, there are really simple steps you can take that might take some time for you to have success, but it truly is a numbers game. Like, there are things that you can do to increase your sales that won't cost you a fortune, that that you can control, and you can build this business that isn't so dependent on the Google, what's happening at Google today or what's happening at Facebook today.
Yeah, because you can lose ranking and your search engine optimization, and then you have an issue with stock. So let's get into the weed, but let's get tactical here. So you're saying building the list, the most important thing. You can have product launch, collaborations, perfect giveaways, but those are more like just like excuses or marketing reason as to why should people be interested in your message, more or less. How do you go about building that list? Let's say somebody's really starting from scratch. They have like, I don't know, 100 person on their list, friends and family mostly, 2 or 3 ex-client maybe, whatever, and they really need to build the whole thing. How do you go about that?
Yeah. So the first thing you need to do for sure is set up a pop-up on your site. Even though we don't like pop-ups, we need to have a pop-up on our site. And the reason that's so important is that it's very much aligned with all the other things we're doing. So if we already know we need traffic. Like, I always tell our members they need at least 3,000 web visitors a month to even get a sale a day. 3,000 is just the starting point. So we know we need traffic. So we're spending time and money getting traffic to our site, whether we're getting 3,000 visitors or 50,000 visitors. We know that takes some effort to make that happen. And so if we get them right there when they're most interested on our site with a pop-up, some sort of offer, whether it's a free download or it's a discount or it's a virtual gift card, whatever it is, a percentage of those people are going to get on your list just by driving traffic, as long as you have a pop-up. And so where we start is saying, hey guys, like, you need to make sure that your pop-up converts. Like, I like people's pop-up to convert at 5 to 9% at least. So if you get 100 people to your site, you want 5 people on that list every day. And if you don't get that, you need to keep adjusting either the quality of your traffic or your offer until you do get that. And so that's the number one low-hanging fruit. It'll give you the best ROI of anything you do to really to grow your list. But there are so many other things you can do. Some of our members would gate a sale collection, which is super smart. And so when people go to see your sale collection, you get a full page takeover that says, hey, this is only for people who are VIPs on our list. Join the list and you'll get access to the sale collection. That's another way to grab email addresses and put them in automations from web visitors. But really, there are so many other things you can do. You can do a quiz. So you can really segment people and put them in specific automations. We have several members who have great quizzes that maybe get leads for 30 or 40 cents. and they put them in cohorts and then can market specifically to those cohorts of people. What if they said they're interested in, and that's how I'm going to market to them. So a quiz is a good one. The giveaway, even though you don't get as many high quality leads from a giveaway, you get a lot of leads. They're inexpensive. It's pretty easy to segment out the ones that aren't good. And over time, even those lists convert at about 4%, which for most stores is a higher conversion rate than they get from all their other
From
activities.
web traffic, that if you get even 2% is great. Verifying like 1%.
Yes, 1 to 2% is average. So if your conversion rate is 1%, you can stop feeling like a loser. It's your average.
I've seen lots of people starting online having a serious struggle just getting to 1%.
Yeah.
Like, okay, maybe they get a lot of traffic, but then is it relevant traffic? Is it quality traffic, targeted traffic, and so on? And even 1% is nothing to sneeze at, because some stores say they have like those insane legendary conversion rates, and they give you percentage like 5, 6, 7, 9, stuff like that. So but then you have either an unbelievable offer, but even then, it needs to matter to people that you send there. So most likely, all that they have is amazing product market fit, amazing offer, but they have a lot of investment in just exactly the right funnel.
Yes,
and that is for as long as that will keep working, because everything changes. So keep mining that while there's something to mine, sure. But that will typically eventually change online eventually.
Right. And you're not getting the whole story there. It's probably a segment, a list.
Exactly.
Or it's a retargeting effort or something.
Yeah, it's not legit.
Yeah.
We're gonna call it that. Yeah.
So here's what I know. I know that generally what I see is that that traffic from email is the highest converting source of traffic I've ever seen. And it's not unusual for it to be around 6 or 7%. So that's what I know. That cold traffic from social media doesn't convert. So it's good to get people there for the first visit, but your number one job is to get them there for the second visit. And the easiest way to get them there for the second visit is to get them on your email list and do some really broad general retargeting that just maybe show them even exactly what they saw the first time, so they have some recall. But yeah, if anyone's getting 3 or 4% conversion, there's something else, not just that they're doing some Google ads and things are going great.
No, for sure. Because when you pay for the ads, then person comes to your site. If they leave your site, sure, you can have retargeting for like 90 days. And then we'll see how that gets impacted with all the no cookie stuff happening now. But there's that going on. That's one way and retargeting ads is typically what works the best for conversion there, for paid traffic and so on. But you want to have a way to capture those contacts, text message or email, because otherwise you're just paying, and you never keep a little bit of equity in the flow of traffic that you're paying to acquire. So that's been the game forever. That has not changed. It's universal. And to build a list, that's pretty great. You said something important here, that your cold traffic from social media did not convert. Do you feel that's a general statement, or do you warm it up to have repeat traffic, or what do you do with social media?
So I think social media is still the very best place to find your people, to identify your people, and to get them get some awareness. And I would have said before, to get them to your site as well. But one of the things, and this might be a little too technical, but maybe not. And what I will share with you is that when iOS 14 happened last year, and really what we saw is that many of our clients who had great success with conversion ads on Facebook, by August, there were some sad people that was really gone, that 3 or 4 or 10 or 8 ROAS was not there. And so they weren't getting the conversions off of those Facebook ads or Instagram ads like they were. But what we have learned, and what we have been so successful with, I've been successful in our product businesses, our members have been successful, but also for me, when I'm advertising the social sales girls, is we just have to think about, how do we build this big warm pool of people that we can retarget? And one of the beautiful things that's available to us on Facebook and Instagram is video view audiences. And so if we put a video on Facebook or on Instagram, and video is super powerful, it has to be captioned and it has to be short for the most part. But if we put a video on Facebook or Instagram and we create audiences of people who have watched that video, even if it's just a through play, 15 seconds or 25% of the video, Facebook and Instagram can still build a high quality audience of those people because there's no cookie, right? All that activity takes place on their platform. And so we've switched, and our entire focus now is okay, let's build these whopping audiences. It's not expensive, it takes some time, but you can build these audiences relatively quickly of people who've watched your video. And then that's who we retarget, asking for a lead or a web visit or an add to cart, maybe. But those people, they click at a much higher rate. They click your link at a much higher rate. And of course, they are much more likely to sign up on your pop up or spend some time on your site. And so that's been a game changer for us.
Yeah, that's a very good tactic. Anyone listening, and for sure, yes, a caption on video and short video that works everywhere. LinkedIn, we see it also ourselves.
Do you? I have never used LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, for B2B really, sales, it's different.
Yeah, it's really an interesting platform. I'll have to look one day.
Yeah, well, because you have an e-commerce store B2C, so it's normal you're looking more Facebook, Instagram, and those shop platforms. When you're B2B, very often Facebook can work too, but it's case by case, depending on the market. But LinkedIn is sort of the default first thing to look at for the B2B stuff. Okay, so we went down in the weeds on how to build your list and transition, because of course the e-commerce aspect is huge, especially when you're doing that transition of selling direct, because now you need an efficient and cost-effective way to reach a lot of people, and in your case, to replace at least $1 million and more, and to grow that thing. So it's worth losing that million in the first place and betting to lose that. Let's circle back to it a little bit. When you did your transition, you said you force people to use your online portals. Like, now you're going to use my system, you log in and use it. Otherwise, I cannot do business with you. So you were super strict at enforcing your process, your way of working, that no, we don't have a secretary or sales staff that's expensive, that you can just call and keep doing things the old way. Things have changed. Here's the new regime, basically.
Yeah, we can't call you 5 times for your credit card anymore.
No, that's it. That's it. You put it online and it's like, either you accept that or we don't work together, basically.
Right.
And I can agree with this general way of working for sure. Okay. And what else happened there? Did you completely close? You said you were open to keeping some of the wholesale. Did you keep some of the wholesale, or you totally ditched it?
So in the first year or two, I felt quite attached to doing my very best to keep it what I could, for sure. And I think it was just an emotional thing more than anything. It was, what will happen if I lose that? That maybe $100,000 worth of revenue is better than zero revenue. But in all honesty, I don't think it was particularly successful over the long term. That I would say that I don't even have to guess. I know that by the time I sold the company in 2018, I had no wholesale orders.
Okay, so you're totally done.
Totally done. And had at some point just decided it was too hard to manage the inventory. It was like a platform like Shopify. I think Magento is very different, but a platform like Shopify was really not set up like to handle both kinds of transactions as far as differentiating between shipping and managing inventory and all those things. It was difficult. And so we let it go. But what I know is that the buyer of Wee Squeak has gone on to have a big presence on Fair, on I think it's only Fair, but there are several of those wholesale marketplaces, and actually does really well with both direct to consumer and wholesale. And I think the mentality has shifted for a lot of retailers, that that's a battle that they can't win with most manufacturers. But the payoff, the trade-off for them is that they can log into a portal like Fair. Fair gives them terms. They can order what they want. They have small MOQs. They don't have to fly to Atlanta and trudge around the mart to find new things. They also have, like, I don't know how Fair does it, but they have a guaranteed sale. So if you don't sell it, you can send it back. It's become crazy easy to keep feeding your inventory as a brick and mortar store with great new product, indie things that you wouldn't find in the majors, and feel relatively confident that it's going to be a good transaction. And if it's not, you're going to be able to get credit to buy something else.
Right. So yeah, it's consolidated to, and you're saying that retailers are basically accepting it, that some other people will be selling it. And if it's not the manufacturer themselves or distributor themselves, then anyway, you probably have a few people who will get the rights to sell it on Amazon and other marketplaces,
Right.
which anyway will be the competition. Did you try to enforce any kind of minimum advertising policy, a MAP policy?
No.
No.
So we had some sales on Amazon for sure, but quite frankly, it wasn't in my wheelhouse to learn that platform, and I didn't. And really, even though we don't want to do all these things ourselves, it's, to me, if something is going to be an important part of your overall business model, you need to at least understand it. You need to at least understand what's important, how it works, and what are the things you can control in that platform. And the reason you need to do that is if you just go run and hire some expert, like, you can kiss your money goodbye and they can tell you anything, and you just sit there going, nodding your head and smiling because you don't know. And so I never invested the time and money into Amazon, and I was not very successful in Amazon. But again, the buyer of Wee Squeak, he did. Like, they did take the time to understand Amazon and learn it, and they do really well on Amazon, which just goes back to say, there's a lot of ways to win the race. And we as e-commerce store owners have way more control over our outcomes than maybe that little voice in our head tells us we do.
Well, Wee Squeak is in a good position because as a manufacturer, you're also the brand owner here, in the sense that it's your own product creation, your own shoes, your own designs, and so on. So you're unique on Amazon. That nobody else has that specific design of a penguin with a smiley or something here. So that is definitely a competitive advantage. Unlike, let's say you're selling, I don't know, the wall drills, and everybody's selling the same drill for the same price, and then it's more a question of how much free giveaway are you willing to give to acquire a customer, because anyway, there's a minimum advertising price, unless you intend to violate that, and then the wall kicks you out as a retailer. So
why would you do that? I guess I would question. I think those of us that are self-employed work hard, and even if we're not at work, often our mind is in the game. And it's the same
day and night, right?
Right? Yeah. It's the same effort to do something that does have a differentiator, is more in your control, is a little bit unique. Like, it's the same effort as it is to try and figure out how to, fit a square peg in a round hole. And so my advice to people is, there is pretty much a market for anything, and there are a lot of ways to get proof of concept. And when people say the riches are in the niches, I've just seen proof of it. I see proof of it.
Yeah, that is true. And are you saying, if I understood you correctly, basically to own the brand, to build your own design and so on, is way better because you want to be different, and you want to have a differentiating factor than, let's say, being a retailer and just reselling other people's stuff.
Yeah. And control. I mean, the thing that did happen to me, and I'm sure is still happening, is people would knock me off, like knock off my designs. But, you
just keep getting new designs out. So it's just you need a machine spinning.
Yeah. And I always try and protect my mental health. I try and focus on things. And I would give that advice to anyone who is like us, who runs a business. Focus on what you can control. Don't let yourself go there. If you can't control it, you're just wasting time. And what is your time worth per hour?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Most product will get copied anywhere 6 to 9 months,
Yeah.
sometimes 12 to 18 months max, unless if it's more
Yeah.
complicated products. So if you're having success, expect somebody to copy it. If nobody's copying,
Yeah.
maybe it's not that successful,
Yeah.
So they will try to find a way around patents, around anything.
Right.
So, or they'll have a slight variation, whatever. So product business, you need to always be making
Moving
the next
forward.
product. It's a
Yeah.
different thing. There's some other challenges such as cash flow, stock and inventory in transit, because then you say, oh, I'm about to run out of inventory. The sales are really coming in. I need to reorder, but you have a production time, depending if you're producing overseas or locally.
Yep.
If it's produced overseas, say, okay, how many weeks do you need for manufacturing? How many weeks for shipping? And you say, oh, will I actually run out of product within 12 weeks or 8 weeks? Then yes, I need to reorder now and tie in, I don't know, 100K with an overseas order and so on. So it's a very different game.
It is. But I have to share something with you that I think that would be helpful for anyone who's in that position is that after I kind of figured out what I was doing when I started to grow the direct to consumer inventory and sales at Wee Squeak, what I realized was, hey, I don't need as much inventory as I think I do. And I would do better if I never ran out of the top sellers, the things that are really hot. And so I can remember like, downloading all sorts of CSVs from my reports and deciding that I was going to find my top 20 products and I was going to commit to never running out of those, which meant I had to overbuy. And that the products below that were like, if I ran out of them, the world wasn't going to end. And the year I did that, my sales went through the roof. And I think it was just plain and simple, uh, making sure that what most people wanted was always there. And it meant that I actually didn't have as much inventory. I had to fly to my warehouse. I couldn't just drive down the street. So I would go down there and like look at the stuff that had a lot of dust on it. Like, okay, well, we have to do something with this.
Yeah, discount that one out.
Right. But it was but what happened was there was just less of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you can really, your inventory will turn way more often. Like I often think 4 inventory turns in bricks and mortar is a myth. I don't think that's true. Just someone will think I'm wrong, and maybe I am wrong. But in e-commerce, you can turn your inventory a lot more often, and you can choose a few signature products and scale those things like nobody's business. And I think that that's very different than bricks and mortar. And so
How many turnover per year do you think is realistic, both for brick and mortar and for e-commerce in the kind of store that you have, which is selling shoes?
yeah, so I would say probably in my and I'm making it up now because it's since 2018. But I would say probably, gosh, I'm thinking about it, doing the math here. I'm going to say 5 to 6 turns, 5 to 7 turns even for my e-commerce store. When I think back to my brick and mortar days, I think it would be amazing to get 2 to 3 turns, really. I don't know how people go.
Which is reasonable too, depending what you're selling. This doesn't mean anything if you're in a different, even country, different
Right.
market. You're selling, I don't know, high end renovation
Right.
gear or builder's gear will be completely different than your
Yeah.
kind of fashion
Yeah.
stuff here for kids.
But the
So
other thing that's super important to remember is that you can pull out a few products in e-commerce or even products that aren't made yet. Like one of the things that was incredibly successful for me is to show the process of a shoe getting designed and build a wait list for that shoe. And so you can launch that product with knowing that you already have a buyer sitting there ready for it. And so, of course, that turns your inventory a lot more quickly. Or we have a lot of members that have a ton of success with subscriptions. And so that's when you're creating product that's already sold. And so there's so much more you can do to turn your inventory and pile up profit and keep your inventory and investment down in e-commerce. It's really just a beautiful business, I got to say.
I agree with you. It's a beautiful business. And when you say subscription, do you mean recurring subscription or just like
Yes.
pre-orders?
So they're two different things in my mind. So pre-orders are
Yeah.
just simply pre-orders. But recurring subscriptions are, you can have a monthly subscription, which
Yeah.
is could be either just a consumable product. We have a client who makes nail polish and has a mystery nail polish of the month. So it's very inexpensive, but it allows her to use up whatever she's got. And she has that recurring revenue every month. So you can set up subscription boxes like that or interest. We have someone who does a subscription box that is, I mean, it's like all about fairies and nature. She has 300 or 400 subscribers at $40 a month. And it's this box of product that she puts together. I mean, I'm not very woo woo, but she does super, super well with that. And that kind of income is wildly profitable. It covers your overhead and more. But I also have a client who does a really well collaborating with designers. She's a ribbon manufacturer, and she will have short-term subscriptions. So she might have a subscription that is $50 or $60 a month, but she gets people to commit for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And so
Short-term recurring strategy.
right? Yeah. So you don't have to worry about attrition as much. It's a commitment, but you have just nailed down some really solid revenue for a quarter at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
And it's wildly profitable because you don't have to guess whether it's sold or not. It's sold. So you manufacture to what you've sold.
Yeah, very good advice there. Yep, I like that stuff, Susan. And also, just a little bit comment before something you said that, of course, it's way better to have the brand, to own the brand when you can, and to have original design and so on. Reason some people will go for, let's say, the retail model. There are many reasons. It's a different business. But first of all, the reselling margin tends to be lower, but also it takes less cash to get in it. So you can more easily just buy a little bit of something, get approved as a reseller, and start. So if somebody's starting with less cash, you just like you're maybe employed, an average job, and then you want to transition to e-commerce, starting as a retailer is a perfectly fair way to start. And you might want to transition later to owning your
Right.
own brand and design and so on.
After
Also,
you've built your audience.
yeah, exactly. You build your audience,
right?
and you can keep selling the retail stuff and at the same time create your own brand, then start
Yes,
selling both, which is a
absolutely.
classic path there.
Great idea.
And furthermore, when you build your own brand, it's all on you to build the awareness and the marketing and all that, which is heavy, which is why you should have revenue first, by doing some retail. And anyway, some of the retail, if you can nail some amazing brand to distribute, some of those are like lasting hundreds of millions of dollars a year in marketing. So if you can nail one of those accounts to sell it, it can be $1 million retail line for just one brand sometime in some businesses. So that's not negligible also to really kickstart your business there. And then you can create your own brand with higher profit margins because you have operational cash to do it.
Interesting. Good point. I don't have a lot of experience with that part of the industry, but I'm sure you see that all the time.
Yeah, it's a different business model. I mean, they're super successful retailers too. It's a different model, different things, but you can see a lot of them, especially like I don't know about other places. It must be the same. Like in Canada, you can see the pharmacies becoming more and more toward like being super small superstores in a way with a restricted thing. But then they create their own generic brand, just like the Costco brand or and so on, that they copy a successful product. Amazon's doing the same online. You have a very successful product, they'll copy it and offer a cheap knockoff, basically, with the Amazon brand on it, the Amazon Basic or something. So you see a lot of that going on. You can sort of do the same. You get started selling retail, and eventually you create your own. Ideally, not a cheap knockoff. Ideally, create something of better value that you almost want to get rid of the retail, like create something else.
Or a complementary product, a product is the same. Like I think that what we all need to remember in e-commerce is the hardest part, but the most important part is the audience, is that pool of people that would be interested in your product. And so you could make a complementary product for that person, and really that you have to focus not so much on what you want to make, but what that person would buy. And sometimes we forget that. Like I would see a lot of people in my universe that have a passion for something, and their business starts out of a hobby or a passion, like a lot of jewelry makers or artists. I would work with a lot of those people. And what they have to remember is that they have to have an audience of people before they decide all the things they're going to sell.
Yeah, because then who will be interested? And if you already have an audience,
Right.
well, what else interests these people? So I mean, there are many ways to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
good.
All right. So we're coming top of the hour here, Susan. Is there anything else you'd like to add here for the transition from wholesale to direct to consumer, or about the e-commerce and building up traffic?
Don't think there's anything wildly important. I think that the benefit outweighs the pain. It's going to be a little painful when you're transitioning from wholesale to direct to consumer. But the long term benefit, when I think about the changes for me, just as a person, um, of course, it was more profitable and I felt like I was more in control when I got there. But the other thing that happened for me was I was location independent. I didn't have to, like, our team went all remote. I didn't have to, like, I wasn't paying people when they weren't doing any work. And for me, it allowed me to work from more than one location. I didn't have to be tied to an office. And that's a huge benefit. And I have seen that happen for so many people. And it's sometimes, particularly with the types of clients I work with, that's more important to them than the income they make.
That's the lifestyle business in those
Yeah.
cases. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll still work hard, but maybe you could do it from the beach.
Yeah, as long as you're efficient, because sometimes that's a bit of
Yeah.
a myth and a postcard thing or a bad book cover telling you,
Yeah.
oh, it takes no efforts and you can have a
Yeah.
few
Oh,
hours of work a week a day or something or per week. But actually, it takes an enormous amount of work to get there. And if you're that driven to have that success, most likely you don't want to work 4 hours a week anyway, because you have
no.
so much more that you want to do in your life. Not to blast that book too much, but the 4 hour
No, but
work
I
week.
think you're right.
Yes,
I agree.
exactly. There was a lot of good in it, but there was also a
Yeah.
few misconceptions that can send people the wrong way. But there was a lot of value out of that book.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Susan, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
So they should just come over to the socialsalesgirls.com. We have lots of free training that they can take advantage of if they'd like. There's a part of our website that is just for free resources. So they can absolutely do that. And they can always just send us a message, info@thesocialsalesgirls.com.
All right. Thank you for being here today, Susan.
Thank you for having me.